Every single phase of private practice has its own unique challenges and its own unique opportunities. Whether you're starting and growing a solo practice, getting a group practice going, whether you're already a group practice boss, or you want to go big and go national with the skills you have, every phase has its challenges. And doing that in community with people and learning from other folks and having that guidance is so, so important. That's why we have a membership community for every phase of practice. Next Level Practice is for solo practitioners to help you get organized, fill up your practice, and get that solo practice rocking. We have small groups, we have accountability partners, we have live events every single week. And also, if in the first 3 months, in the first 90 days, you're not satisfied, we have a 90-day money-back guarantee. Next, we have Group Practice Launch. Group Practice Launch is a 6-month program specifically for you to launch a group practice. We have weekly meetings with that as well as guided courses, and you get full access to Next Level Practice. And you're guaranteed to hire someone in the first 6 months, or you get to go through it again for free. Next, we have Group Practice Boss. Group Practice Boss is for people that have group practices and want to continue to grow. All those ups and downs of having a group practice, of changing that mindset, being in community with other people, and getting that support from us. We, with that as well, have weekly meetings, and you get to come to Next Level Practice events as well. So that's 8 meetings a month that you could come to live to get extra help. Also, there's a 90-day money-back guarantee. Lastly, we have Audience Building Academy. Audience Building Academy is specifically for people that are ready to level up and go national. Maybe you want to get a traditionally published book, have a podcast, launch some e-products and e-courses and scalable income. Audience Building Academy is specifically for you so that you can level up and go national. We'll walk you through exactly how you go from having a solo or a group practice to going national. We'll help you build your email list, get on podcasts, and really level up. So no matter what your phase is, we have a membership community for you. Over at practiceofthepractice.com/memberships, you can read all about them and sign up. Go in there and decide which membership phase is for you and join today. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/memberships. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1148. Happy New Year! I hope you are doing amazing today. Whether you're listening to this on the 1st of January or a few days after, Happy New Year to you. We are kicking off our Even Better Year series. This is going to be all of January, and I have been waiting to have someone that would fill this very first spot. So I recorded actually the entire month, and then left this spot open to see who would have a topic that would really help kick off this year. And I'll tell you about Brian Solis in just a second. But we're going to be talking about Mindshift, transforming leadership, driving innovation, reshaping the future. I mean, things that we all want to do this year. But first, as we kick off this series, why do I call it Even Better Year series? It seems sort of like anticlimactic. It's not best year, new you. It's not like this, Power 40 or whatever the new diet thing is. I'm sure you're being flooded with those things that are saying you will change into an entirely different person with better abs, better relationships, better eating habits. But we know the reality is it's usually those small steps in the right direction. I remember years ago, I decided that my doctor or my dentist said, you need to floss more. And I said to him, what's the minimum amount that I can floss? And this was when I was on a pretty tight budget, but, kind of before I had Practice the Practice going. So this would have been, 15, 20 years ago. And he said to me, seriously, if you just floss every 3 days, once every 3 days, that would be amazing. So I'm like, okay, so 10 times a month. So I had this little chart in my bathroom that just had 10 dots on it. And when I hit that 10th dot, I allowed myself to get a fancy coffee. At that point, it was probably a mocha or something. I'm more into espresso now, but this is probably my early 30s, late 20s, somewhere in there. So I said, okay, I'm going to just do this. I'm going to do it 10 times a month, then I can buy myself a fancy coffee. And you know what? I still floss, and I floss more than every 3 days. It's those small steps in the right direction that usually make the impacts. That's why I'm excited for this. We have coming up on episode 1150, we have Lori Brado, who is one of the top sex health researchers in all of Canada. And on episode 1151 coming up, we've got an episode all on 1099s and W-2s. We've got all sorts of things on unifying frameworks and psychotherapy. So this month, it's going to be an even better year for you if you join us for every single episode. So that's why I'm so excited to have Brian Solis with us. Brian is an author of the brand new book, Mindshift: Transform Leadership, Drive Innovation, and Reshape the Future. He is a world-renowned futurist, digital anthropologist, 8-time best-selling author, and international keynote speaker. Forbes has called him one of the most creative and brilliant business minds of our time. ZDNet said that Brian is one of the 21st century business world's leading thinkers, and the conference board described Brian as the futurist we all need now. Brian, welcome to the Practice podcast.
Joe, Happy New Year.
Yeah, I am so excited to have you here. First, for people that haven't heard the term futurist and digital anthropologist, what the heck is that?
Oh man, you sound like my parents. What do you do? What do you
Yeah, my
do?
parents are like, "How do you make money off of podcasting?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
I also should say that I'm the head of global innovation at a company called ServiceNow, and all of my years of defining those two roles, being a futurist and a digital anthropologist, come through in the form of helping companies think differently about the future, see the future differently in order to innovate today toward it, and create a different trajectory for these companies. And so what a digital anthropologist does, believe it or not, it didn't exist as a formal practice in the 90s when I started to actually do it. It studies how digital technology, think about things like digital cameras at the time, or the consumer internet, or over the years like iTunes or TikTok or Uber. These things have a way of changing our behaviors at a core level, at a community level, which become new norms, which becomes essentially the new standards for living. Changing behaviors over time changes consumerism, or how people want to work, or how people want to make decisions. Like, for example, one of the things I've been studying post-COVID is how, when you stay home long enough, when you get scared long enough in terms of uncertainty, your core behaviors and values change. And what we're seeing in terms of restaurants, for example, are earlier dinner reservations, whereas eight o'clock was the hotspot. 5 o'clock in New York is the new hotspot. Late night venues closing, people wanting to spend more time at home watching Netflix, changing who they surround themselves with in terms of loved ones and friends and family. But the other side of that is the futurism bit. And contrary to popular belief, a futurist is not someone who predicts the future, but instead studies these trends, plays them out in various likely scenarios using data and all of the materials at hand, so that we can plan forward. And this is, believe it or not, it sounds like what we should all be doing. But for the most part, companies of every sort in every industry, entrepreneurs included, tend to react to moments in the moment. And then the most successful ones are those who look a bit ahead, get excited about what's coming, and experiment toward it. And so those hopefully give basic definitions to your question.
No, that's really helpful. I think in thinking about futurism and kind of planning for the future, it reminds me of like a very advanced version of a SWOT analysis. So like strength, weakness, opportunities, threats. That opportunity is like, what are we missing that we could be doing? Threats, what's coming in this industry or outside of this industry, and trying your best to plan for different things that happen. When you look at, most of our listeners are, we have people that are just a solo practice, and I shouldn't say just like lots of sustainable solo practices. That's all they want. They want that, maybe an assistant. It's the two of them. Maybe they have a billing coordinator, all the way up to, 50 to 100 clinician practices. So still in the world of business, small businesses. So under 100 employees. When you're thinking about kind of the mental health world, you're thinking about kind of the future of mental health. I mean, I see some trends especially in regards to investors investing in all sorts of different kind of online platforms, AI platforms, things like that. But what are you seeing that would impact kind of the industry of mental health?
Oh, so much actually. So this is where the digital anthropology would also come in, and for example, AI, generative AI in particular, is in the realm of mental health and robotics. I would also add to that. There's been some interesting experiments that I've been personally tracking. For example, uh, in therapy, in scenarios where certain types of individuals have a hard time opening it up to a stranger or to another human being, that they find themselves more comfortable opening up to an AI therapist. And whether or not there's a human in the background, that's another story. But it puts them at ease in order to be able to express themselves in ways that they probably couldn't do without without practice, I guess is a or reward, I should say. But also in robotics, we've seen the same thing. So where individuals just can feel more comfortable in this case. In there's a startup that is putting essentially black boxes in shopping malls at the moment as a test for primary care or therapy. In a room that's just manned by AI, with of course an intelligent chatbot of your choosing, I'm sure. But these are interesting sort of ways of getting people acclimated to the idea of approaching this for help. And that to me is a signal. It isn't just about taking the human out of the loop, but it is a way of understanding. Then the future side of me would play this out as how as a practitioner would this affect my business, and how can I use these trends to be more experimental in the services that I offer? How can I use AI to be more effective in reaching new patients, or be more effective in how I treat patients? Can I use technology to be more incremental, to prep ahead of time, to summarize my engagements, to be more maybe proactive in predicting then what is likely the next step in treatment or activity. So these are like your SWOT analysis or any number of tools. Some of the tools I teach in the book, I try to make it so that everyone can be an everyday futurist.
Mm. Now, I know one of the things that you do in Mindshift is you really spend some time on curiosity. Why start with curiosity?
Well, curiosity, look, I gotta tell you, I spend a lot of time with people who will who are some of the most successful people in the world, in every industry, every facet, from founders to practitioners to politicians. And the one thing that they all would swear that they have is an open mind, or that they are inherently curious. But in reality, as the fact that we're all human beings, we carry cognitive biases in almost everything that we do, and it prevents us from actually seeing it for its truest possibilities. We can demean it, we can ignore it, we can kind of push it off to the side, we could be skeptical about it, all normal things. But self awareness is probably the first step into really opening your mind to be in a place where you have childlike wonder, where curiosity is more free and more spirited, in a way that allows you to truly explore something for what it is and not for how you think it is. And this is why I always say success can be the poorest of teachers when it comes to innovation, is we want to get ourselves to what is called a beginner's mind, which a beginner's mind is an ancient practice that basically says, I can come to this with the most open mind, heart, and soul to understand something, but the expert will come in and see very few things with what's in front of them. And the beginner's mind is, once you get to that state, then curiosity, imagination, possibility, any exercise that you do in terms of understanding something from that standpoint, it puts you in what I call a receiver's state, so that you're constantly open to seeing what you would have probably missed before. And then as a result, puts you in a place to do something about it before it becomes a disruptive event.
Mm. Yeah, I love that idea of going back to beginner's mind. In Thursday is the New Friday, my most recent book, the first third of it is on our internal inclinations. And so those things that just come natural to leaders that the research shows helps them be better leaders. And one of those is curiosity. And, a lot of the reasons that I saw in the research, and would love your thoughts on what you're seeing, was that a curious leader is someone that doesn't necessarily have a pass fail mentality when certain things happen. So we run this big Facebook ads campaign, or whatever investment we put into some sort of advertising, it doesn't go how we want it. A leader that doesn't have curiosity as their natural inclination is like, oh my gosh, what a waste of money, like we're upset about it, whatever. Whereas a curious leader will say, like, of course we don't like spending money on things that don't work, but like, what did we learn about our audience here? What can we take away from this? What can we tell that isn't working anymore? What can we be curious around in regards to this quote failure? And it seems like leaders that have that mindset just do better because they can adapt, they can change, they can still gather things out of potentially negative situations. What else are you seeing in regards to the research and in exploring the topic of curiosity?
Oh man, I'm a big fan of creativity, and to be creative isn't to be Mozart or Picasso. It's just to see different things that other people couldn't see, to experiment or do things that people wouldn't do. You don't have to be the best at it, but just being more open to these things is fantastic. So I'll tell you, on the Facebook ad thing, I'll give you an example. Failure is when you try something and you learn from it to move forward. But I think we tend to define it as you try something, it didn't work, and I suck. Why did I do that? What a waste of time. And then in that regard, failure then becomes only when you try something and you refuse to learn from it. So if you take the Facebook ad thing at scale, here's where curiosity comes in. You're experimenting. Maybe it's working. Maybe it's not working. You're learning. You continue to experiment. In an era of AI, you can take that openness, that curiosity, and try and experiment at scale to the point where you're doing different audiences, different keywords, different headlines, different content copy, different images, all in real time, to the point where you're testing now at scale with that curious mind, well beyond you could have done as an individual, probably costing you much less over time and converting much more over time as well. So once you get that open mind, technology in this case, for example, could help you scale it. And I want to tell you a real quick lesson I talk about in the book. It's the story of a simple cup of tea, and there's two individuals, and we could just call them master and student. And the student was there to learn, and was hoping that the master could teach him all of this wisdom. And the master's pouring tea into an empty cup, and just keeps pouring and pouring and pouring. And the student says, "Whoa, it's so overflowing." And the master says, "Like the cup, you are too full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" And this is the power of just getting to that basic. I don't know what I don't know, and that's okay. And once you can accept that, you now give yourself the space, the permission, and the ability to explore the unknown. And that is where most people shut the door.
Mm. Yeah, I love that idea. And I love those like koans that you learn these kind of different ways of thinking about things that disrupt your thought patterns. From new patients faced with an empty lobby and no idea where to find their therapist, to clinicians with a session running overtime and the doorbell ringing, some of the most anxiety-ridden moments of a therapy appointment happen before a session even starts. This episode's sponsor, the Receptionist for iPad, helps you tackle some of that pre-appointment apprehension. The Receptionist for iPad is an easy-to-use digital client check-in system that helps your visitors check in securely to their appointments and notify their practitioners of their arrival via SMS, email, or your preferred channel. No more confusion, endless lobby checking, or having clients sign in on paper logbooks. Start a 14-day free trial of The Receptionist for iPad by going to thereceptionist.com/practice. Make sure to start your trial with that link, and you'll also get your first month free if you decide to sign up. Again, start your trial over at thereceptionist.com/practice. Now, when we start to develop curiosity as leaders, how do we start to transform our leadership, drive that innovation, reshape the future? Like, what are some of the practical ways that you're seeing companies think differently as they, say, enter into a new year?
I think we all have the greatest of hopes, aspirations, intentions. I'm sure anybody listening to this can talk about how New Year's resolutions tend to typically fall by the wayside. I don't know, maybe 30 days into the new year. But the thing is changing how you see things and what you do about it, turning it into a discipline. Like the story you were telling about flossing. You just turn it into something that just becomes routine. It becomes the flex to the point where you change and now you move on. It's your new norms, your new patterns and behaviors, and then you reap the benefits. I think the thing about it is that closed minds, they don't know they're closed, and so they tend to distort information to fit their beliefs or to fit their goals or fit their measures of success. But if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think we've all believed for the longest time that it was a pyramid. Self-actualization was at the top of this pyramid, but an example of curiosity would be to challenge even the most basic of assumptions. So, first of all, I don't know if people know this, but Maslow never actually visualized it as a pyramid. And the other thing about it was that self-actualization wasn't the state that Maslow had been working toward in his work that were studied posthumously. They found that transcendence was actually, the quote unquote top of the pyramid, which was this idea of transcending their own self, essentially, and said another way, changing, becoming the person that you aspired to be once your mind opened to, for example, in the case of Mindshift, to continue then the work of being open, seeing new things, experimenting with new things to your benefit. And this is what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset, whereas a fixed mindset might put everything into the parameters. A growth mindset says, I can learn, I can do something differently. What the book does is it teaches you then what to do differently, how to measure it, how to convince other people that this is the right thing to do as well. Because essentially what we're trying to do is not just be better caregivers, but also be better in general. How do I serve? How do I create new value? How do I build greater relationships? How can I scale this? And that is, I think, whereas we see technology as a potential threat, we can now, with a mind shift, see it in all the ways that it can help us and help those we care about.
Tell me more about AI, because that's probably one of the leading technology things. When you think about AI and that disruption within the market of counseling, how can we be using AI differently? How can we be thinking about AI? For me personally, we've been doing a lot with AI here at Practice of the Practice. So even just looking at, and this may be live by the time this episode goes live, take the pre-consulting calls. So right now, people will go to practiceofthepractice.com/apply. They'll fill out a form. They then go to my calendar. We do a 30-minute session. I then meet with them for 30 minutes. And then, they get paired up with whichever consultant seems to be the best fit for their budget, for their goals, for all sorts of different things. And there's people we've realized that, it may take 2 weeks to get into a pre-consulting call with me. And then they may take a week to decide. And then they may take a week to schedule with that consultant. So we're looking at like a month from the point that they're on our website saying, I want to do consulting, till they actually get into consulting. So there's always going to be people that want to talk to me, but then also training AI to have this bot that can walk them through and sound like me. And I'm right now testing that and doing different scenarios and making sure the recommendations are such that it lines up with what I would recommend. So like, that's how we're doing it. But like, what else is out there, or like, what are just maybe even big picture concepts of how people can be thinking about AI in regards to the future of their private practice this year?
Yeah, well, they should be thinking about it and embracing it, but they shouldn't be thinking about it with a linear mindset. And I'll explain this. There, there is a friend of mine. He's the co-founder and CTO of a company called HubSpot. His name is Dharmesh Shah. I remember at some point last year he had said, "You compete with AI." That's all he said, and it just started a flurry of engagement. This was a post I think on LinkedIn, and everybody kind of you could see where cognitive biases sort of kicked in. Oh, I know, it's like it's going to take jobs. It's going to, like, everything that was negative. Uh, and then he came back and he clarified. Now think about it again. You compete with AI, meaning that
Mm.
you are more capable, you are more effective with a tool that extends what you know, and then also can extend what you don't know, in order then to explore value creation, explore potential new outcomes, not just linearly grow your business or linearly improve your services, but to exponentially now unlock opportunities that you didn't know you could do or didn't know to think about until you had these tools. And I think this is, one of the I think it's somewhere in the middle of the book. I talk about the 6 stages of mind shifting, and it's the same approach you would take to, say, something like an AI tool, or if you're looking into the future, it's how you're thinking about the next wave of generative AI. What does it mean when it can reason? What does it mean when agents can actually do things on your behalf? So let's just take today's AI. This mind shift would allow you not just to interact with it in the way that you're trying to have an email completed or have some research done, that you're thinking about it exponentially. Like, for example, there's you can role play with it. Okay, you're Steve Jobs. In the mind of Steve Jobs, please analyze my business plan and tell me where I am not achieving my full potential, and yell at me like the way that Steve Jobs would. Uh, and or you could give it to Einstein and have Einstein analyze your business plan for next year. I'm just making these scenarios up, but the point is to train your brain in how you're interacting with artificial intelligence to push you out of your comfort zone, to challenge your fundamental assumptions about what you think you're doing right and what you think you're doing, period, to help you explore uncertainty, to help you explore new realms, to essentially exponentially supercharge curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to be able to do some of those different aspects to just have it evaluate things. It was interesting. As I built that bot, or I'm building this bot, I said I want you to analyze this bot as someone with the lens of sales conversion. So, like, what would you teach that bot, and show me your teachings? And so it had a conversation with itself, training it to be better at sales, but then also I don't want it to be icky. I don't want it to be like not how I would talk. And so it was so interesting to just watch it like train itself in this area. And it's just, I mean, the potential is just mind bending.
Yes, yes, it is. It is mind bending, and that's where people will press pause because it's overwhelming, and we tend to shut down in those types of scenarios rather than sort of making time and space to explore and experiment. And this is really where, like in anything, curiosity, openness, helps you grow. And as you grow, like back with the flossing story, as you do this more, it just becomes your new center of reference.
How are you personally using AI?
Oh, and in every facet. One thing I do not use it for is to do my work. I still need my neuroplasticity to rewire itself to be more creative, more open, so that I'm not just a human in the loop, as what's to say with AI, but I'm the orchestrator of it, and I think about AI as sort of like a cognitive exoskeleton, like helping me think bigger and differently and toward new outcomes and new values. So I use it in a number of ways. I've also created a Brian bot trained on all of my work, and I then take that bot to interact with other bots of people I admire to challenge my thinking, open my thinking, be more creative, be more innovative. I use it in my work to actually do deep research, to accelerate deep research. So Perplexity, for example, is one of my favorite tools because it footnotes all of the results so that you can then personally dive deeper into the areas that are going to help you move in the direction you're trying to move in. But ultimately, I also use it to explore opportunities for augmentation. So if you think about automation, it's when we use AI to sort of do, or any technology, to use that technology to do what we did yesterday better today. Uh, Augmentation is taking what you do and outfitting you with exponentially more capabilities so that those outcomes are beyond what you could have done without the tool. And I use AI to help me explore those opportunities for augmentation because most brains think linearly, and doing that helps me learn how to think more exponentially. So I'm partnering, or to quote Dharmesh, I'm competing with AI.
Mm. Well, the last question I always ask is if every private practitioner in the world were listening this I almost said this year. I think I should say that. Yeah. If every private practitioner were listening right now, what would you want them to know? But I'm going to add, because this is the first episode of the year, like what should they be thinking about this year?
They should start thinking about the fact that what they know about generative AI or what they don't know about generative AI is that this year we will probably see an I use that word again, an exponential leap in the capabilities of these tools. And by exponential leap, I want you to think about it this way: if you use IQ as a metric, ChatGPT 3 could have been, I don't know, I'm just going to make this up, 85 IQ. Uh, ChatGPT 4. Oh, actually, no, I do know this. The jump between ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4 was 10x. ChatGPT 4 is estimated to have an IQ of about 155, 160, which is what they say Elon's IQ could be. Think about this year when ChatGPT 6 hits. If it's another 10x, now you're multiplying that IQ by 10x. And so what I'm what I'm hoping to inspire you to think about is the fact that these tools are only going to get exponentially more capable, and this is the time now to really dive in, to really embrace these tools. Maybe use Mindshift to help you go through the framework of how do you see these tools and how do you experiment with these tools. Maybe you use Mindshift to look at the other technologies like ambient and spatial computing that are also emerging and just embrace them. They might sound kind of geeky, but find ways to be better for not just you, but for the people you serve. Give give this technology a sense of purpose so it's not so scary or overwhelming. When you give it a sense of purpose, give it meaning, you make it more human and more approachable. And that way, you're using these things to explore the unknown, not just with curiosity, but with fervor, with passion, with the whole hope and intent of being better for the people you serve and also for yourself.
Well, as you say that, I'm going to look at my calendar. I was just doing it as you were talking. I'm going to block out weekly time to just dig into AI even more than what I already enjoy doing right now. So thanks for pushing us into that action. Brian, if people want to get your book, if they want to follow what you're talking about, thinking about all of that, where should we send them?
BrianSolis.com is a good home base. And the book is basically in every bookstore out there. The website for the book is mindshift.ing, so mind shifting. And I'm Brian Solis on LinkedIn and all the other socials out there.
Thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Yeah, Joe, Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thanks so much. Well, as you enter into this new year, think about those small steps in the right direction that you can be taking, because it isn't usually those big New Year's resolutions. It's good to have this time to think, where am I at in my life? Depending on your age, like where are you at in your lifespan? Where are you at with your kids? Every single month I do a reflection on my life. I started this probably 6 years ago. And it's just a Google Doc, and it asks me questions like, what are the joys of parenting right now? What are the things that are frustrating with parenting right now? And, what's love life look like? What's politically, what's it look like? What am I growing in? How am I, how's business going? And, in 10 years when my kids are out of the house, it's going to be really interesting to go back and just look at this, 10, 15 years of me every month saying, here's where I'm at in life. And having that reflection is so important. And I think that no matter how we reflect, when we enter into a new year, it's good to reflect. And it's also to say, I want to set some goals. But let's think through these goals and say, how do we make these sustainable? How do we make them the floss challenge instead of the I'm going to floss every single day and then be so frustrated and have some shame spiral that I'm going to quit by February 1st? So take some time to think through, where are you at? What are some small steps in the right direction? Maybe it's a 1-minute plank every day. I did that for probably 4 years. I've fallen out of that habit, but it felt really good every day to take time to just plank. Those are the things that can really help us. And, we couldn't do this show without our sponsor. The Receptionist for iPad helps you tackle some of that pre-appointment apprehension that people have. Even my daughter's dentist has a receptionist check-in, a virtual queue where you go up to it, you put in your last name, your date of birth, and boom, you're checked in. The Receptionist for iPad is that for private practice. Head on over to thereceptionist.com/practice to get started today. You're going to get to have a free trial with your first month totally for free over at thereceptionist.com/practice. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.